Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life. And Professor Sunreis Productions! Hello class, Professor Sunreis here, and welcome to another episode of Dual Academy Replay Analysis. In this episode, we are taking a look at Brave Virtual World with the Cyberse Eldlich, and the game 3, in my opinion, is very interesting because we both opened incredibly strong hands, especially on my part, and I just wanted to showcase you, even if you draw completely broken, you still have to respect the opponents out. Cards like Dark Ruler, Drop It, they can definitely still screw you over. And I'm just going to go a little into my thought process during a match if the opponent disrupts or doesn't disrupt, how I read that into the opponent's hand and try to figure out, okay, what hand traps does the opponent have? Does the opponent only have board breakers? Does he have hand trap? Stuff like that. So without further ado, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave comments and feedback down in the comment section down below. And let's get right into the replay. So here we are in the replay. I won the rock, paper, scissors, so I got to go first. I'm currently at 765 rating. The opponent is at 1,609 rating. And we are gonna turn on the face cam real quick so you can see my beautiful face. The opponent's opening hand is a Lancia, which he threw at us in the standby phase, an Eldlich, a Scythe, a Firewall Guardian, and a Crow. So that's two defensive cards which kind of counteract each other. Decided to throw the Lancia in the standby phase to play around an Enchantress, as DD Crow is just not as impactful. In my opinion, you could have thought about holding this against me. It definitely would have been way stronger. And then he has one Firewall engine, so this is the Cyberse starter. This is like complete combo. This is Scythe plus Enforcer, but he does hard for the Scythe going second. That's pretty bad, and he has the one Sanguine, so that's like not a good hand going second. And we have a Destrudo, a Laulau, an Adventure, an Ogre, and an Enchantress. That's a pretty good hand, especially if the opponent lands us in the standby phase, because we have the hard draw Adventure to actually still get full Brave Engine going. So we decide to start out with the Adventure. As we are Lanciat, we cannot use the Temple to the Enchantress to search a ride. So we decide to use Adventure. Because we have a free discard in Destrudo, we can just use it on the Griffin to search the Griffin, pitch Destrudo, then we can summon the Griffin. We can use the normal summon the Enchantress because we have no value of it in the hand, and we can just get it into the grave for the next turn. And use the Destrudo on it to do a hull combo. We don't have protection against another hand trap, but we're like, okay, we gotta commit to it. He's playing 60 card. He probably plays a lot of hand traps, but the chances of him having two in his hand, in my opinion, gets slimmer if he blind Lancias in the standby phase, but that's just my opinion. And even if it's not my opinion, it's basically the only line of play which we had because of the standby phase Lancia. And we still have an Ogre if the opponent decides to has two hand trap and completely gets us out of the engine here. But we can chain block the Hulk, which is like pretty cool. Probably doesn't do a lot apart from against an Ash, but like it's something. And if he had an Ash here, that would have been insane. We summon the dashboard and we summon the Ogroverdon, summoning ourselves 3 tokens. And at this point, if the opponent doesn't hand trap us or nip us or whatever, he doesn't have anything. He doesn't do anything, and we're like, okay, we're good to go. The opponent is never gonna do anything to us, so we can start to set up our Virtual World engine. We go for the Cupid pitch, decreasing using its effect to decrease its level. So it's a level 3 now. Together with the token, we go into a Synchro 6 into the Juju, effect Cupid pitch to search a monster with 600 def and burn for the level of the Synchro summoned monster. So we burn for 600 and we get to add a Lulu. That's so strong, guys. You definitely need to play the Hull combo. It's so strong in Virtual World. Lulu targets the Juju. We'll be adding a Kowloon, sending a Chucha. We won't get any of these alive anyways. We just want the Kowloon on the field so we could theoretically get the Chucha on the field so we can have a Laulau on Chucha, for example, if something happens. It's just better. In this bit, it doesn't matter. We could have also sent a Qinglong, search a Chucha. It basically doesn't matter. We use the Lulu and the Griffin Rider to go into Synchro 10, which is so strong into Baroness. It's so nice if the Brave engine gets disrupted, that you can always go into a Baroness with the engine or like the leftovers of the engine you have. We still have a Juju on the field, so we can still go for Laulau. Target the Juju, send a Qinglong as follow-up. Nice thing about summoning the Fleur, we get the Lulu into the graveyard, so we can now go for Laulau. summon the Lulu, and at this point we don't have too many options anymore. Because of the Lancia, of course, we could have summoned just another body with the Qinglong if we had it, or use the Chuchu on the Lulu and then have another Synchro level 6 target. We could have theoretically gone for a Charge Warrior here and then overlay into anything that is Crystal Wing or rank 6. We don't have his stuff engraved, which we want to add back, so an M7 is just not strong enough. And no matter what we do, we will always stay with one body on the field. And I value a Crystal Wing lower than I value a Shenshin, just because Shenshin is actual more disruption, because it just doesn't trade 1 for 1, it can usually trade 1 for 2. If it eats a Droplet, a Dark Rooter, and a Permanent, it's just the same, it just trades with the defensive cards of the opponent, the blowout cards, and most importantly, it's a form of follow-up for the next turn, so we decided to go with that. So we get the Lulu and the Juju and go into the Shenshin, sadly, because we cannot use Chucha, we couldn't go into a Charge Warrior first and get like value of that, maybe draw into a hand trap, into another name, whatever, it's way too risky, we cannot do it, so we just go for a Shenshin, and we have Baroness, Shenshin, Ogre, which is in my opinion pretty good against 5 cards. As the opponent didn't hand trap us, we anticipated a lot of engine, a lot of gas in his hand, but as we soon realized, it's not like that. He draws an Enchantress for turn, which is like insane. He uses Enchantress. We decide to let that go through. We could theoretically Baroness it here, but the problem of Baronessing the Enchantress or the right, whatever, it gets punished by another right hard draw. And we, even in a 60 card, we just want to minimize that chance because we have the Ogre on the Adventure, so that's like a pretty fine trade for us. It leaves them with the token. You can of course use the token for some limb climbing, whatever, but it's a manageable threat, so we decide to just Ogre the Adventure, keep the Omni negate, and now we still have an Omni and the Shenshin. So pretty good to go. I decided also not to activate the Kaloon in my hand. Main reason is just I didn't want the opponent to have a good Cosmic target cycle or whatever. You can Cosmic my my Chuchu just right away. I don't have any value of it. It doesn't do anything. We will never get it alive in the opponent's turn. So I'm just gonna keep it. I could theoretically hard draw it, but I was like, I'd rather just keep it. So I have theoretically something to set as well for a Crystal Wing line, because we still had a level 6 on the field. There would have been a very easy time for us next turn to just get another level 6 on the field, and then we could do an early Crystal Ring into the opponent's combo, for example, if he actually broke our board, for example. But anyway, he didn't. He just scooped. He didn't want to show me what he was playing. But at this point, I was pretty sure he's playing Cyberse Eldlich, because Cyberse Eldlich is the only 60 card pile with a so low ceiling that you couldn't break this board. So I decided to go for that. It basically doesn't matter too much because most of them just play the same. But in my head, we were playing against Cyberse Eldlich at this point. So the opponent, of course, goes first. Opening hand is Hulk, Gadget, Enchantress, Vela, Enchantress, so that's a pretty decent hand. And we have Enchantress, Dracoback, Laulau, Lily, Ogre. That's also like a good hand if you get to draw into another, like an E-Tilly or a normal summonable virtual world. But problem is we're playing against a Cyflock deck, and we only have 1 disruption, and they have their 1 blank card, negate any disruption. So we're probably gonna lose this. They start, of course, with the Enchantress, get the Ride. Ride gets the Dracoback, the token and the Adventure. Then he normal summons the Gadget, he summons into a Link Disciple, Chainlink 1 Adventure, Chainlink 2 Gadget, so he chain blocks that. I don't know if it does a lot. I guess he still gets the Dracoback add, so he has just 1 more card, which you can shuffle away with that. I guess that matters, so you definitely want to go for that. He gets the token, the Adventure resolves, giving a Dracoback. At this point he activates the first effect of Adventure to search a monster. We Ogre that, of course. But at this point we are pretty sure we are just losing, because he has full Cyberse Eldlich combo and you just need to draw 2 hand traps against them, and if you do that you automatically win, because the deck just hard struggles against any disruption and it cannot get back into the game if it doesn't resolve the Fusion Destiny, because it just has no follow-up, and the follow-up it has, it's so prone to spot removal. In my opinion, this deck is just not that strong. It's definitely a good deck, but I just don't like playing it. I feel like it has like a lot of weaknesses. Anyways, he gets the 2 summons here of the Link Devotee. By the way, Link Devotee is a mandatory effect, and if you have an Ghost Orca and they don't open with the Brave Engine, you just hit that and they basically lose. Like the first Link Devotee they trigger under the Link Disciple, before they contribute it, you just Ogre it, it's gone, and they basically have nothing to to come back from that, because they need a Cyberse extender to get their plays going. I mean, they can go for like an Dacta line, an Anaconda line, sorry, but that's it. And as long as you don't get Cyflock by this deck, the deck just doesn't have enough disruption to consistently beat you. Anyways, we didn't have another Ogre, and even if we had, we couldn't activate it because he drew Brave Engine, so he is just going to go for the standard line, summoning Dacta, summoning a Devotee, triggering its mandatory effect, summoning the Dacta, setting the Scythe, sorry, and use the Dacta and the Devotee to go into an Anaconda, pay 2k, dump Fusion Destiny, dump Bricks, summon Enforcer, set one more card, which is the Hakrero, which he is probably going to pop here. We decide the end phase is okay because we don't have a nip. Enforcer, pop the token and the Hakrero activate, get the Eldlich to at least get the Eldlich engine going. So now it's the Elixir, Scythe, Enforcer, 2 hand traps, and Enchantress. We draw for turn a nip, which would have been nice earlier because we would have won with that. Basically, no, probably not, because we don't have. I mean, theoretically, we could have Enchantress, which would have forced the Enforcer on anything. Then use the leftover body of the Brave Engine, or just the nip token, or the nip to tribute summon the Lao, and then we could have Lilied on the Lao. We could have theoretically gone into the game. But it's just way too much because he would have definitely ogred that. And then if we tribute summoned over something, he would have just enforced it on the virtual world summon. So we're never going to get into this game anyways because of the bad hand we drew. But that's alright. We just scoop, go into game 3. And this is where this becomes very interesting because it might not look that interesting, but still there's a lot of depth even into a hand like this, which you are guys going to see right now. The opponent's hand is Foolish, Cursed Outland, Illusion of Chaos, Impermanence, Elixir. This hand is insane. It's quite high on Eldlich cards, but it's like the good going second Eldlich card. And he has Illusion of Chaos to just go into draws, and he also has the Brave Engine. Plus another defensive card, so his hand is pretty good. Our hand, on the other hand, is even more insane. We have Brave Engine with Foolish. We have the Virtual World Engine with E-Tailing, Lulu, GG. So that's a very robust engine. We are even gonna play through 2 hand traps no matter what, and we have a Token Collector to just completely shut off his turn. And like this is completely busted, but the most important thing is to still play into the opponent's outs. We are deciding to start with the Foolish because like the order of play you want to go for is most of the time you want to start with Brave. If you have a very busted hand and you can go for Hull combo, then Brave, and still have Virtual World combo of that, mostly like Kowloon Lulu. Then you can go for Hull combo first, but especially if you draw a defensive card in your hand, it's 99% of the time it's Brave Engine first. So we decide to go for Foolish, then the Enchantress. Enchantress, banish itself. No Lancia at this point means there's no Lancia. If this resolves, I'm 99% sure the opponent doesn't have an Ash in his hand, because in my book you would always want to Foolish and Ash, because Ash, not Foolish and Ash, but Foolish and Enchantress effect out of the graveyard if it was sent by a Foolish, because especially in a Brave Virtual World deck where you don't have a lot of value of the leftover Brave cards in your hand, and you have good other Foolish targets. If the opponent Foolishes and Enchantress, in my head it means they don't have Brave in the hand. And if they don't have Brave in the hand, just hit the Ash, hit Ash on the Enchantress, because it doesn't give the opponent an adventure, it doesn't give him a token to play with. But none of that happens here. He doesn't Ash, so we're like, okay, no Ash, no Lancia. What else could be in his hand? There still, of course, could be a Nip. We play around a Nip, of course, with the Brave Engine. So we go for that, get the adventures, summon a token. We summon an E-Tally here, because we don't want to show the Token Collector yet. We, of course, need to do 2 discards in the combo. It's always nice. You can always just discard something out of your hand if you don't have a way to trigger the adventure first. In this case, we have something to trigger the adventure first, so we definitely want to discard the Draco back first, just to don't give the opponent any info he has. Especially a card like Token Collector in the grave is like huge against this deck, so we definitely want to hide that fact for now. We decide to go for a Neon here. We could also go for a Lulu, so if the adventure gets hit, we can still go into a Hull combo, but he doesn't have an Ash, he doesn't have a Lancia, so the likelihood of the opponent having a lot of hand traps is quite low, and we still have 2 Virtual Worlds in the hand to actually just play into a board. We don't need the Hull combo for that. So we decided to go for the Neon, so we have that alive. Adventure is gonna trigger, gonna add ourselves a Draco back. We're gonna use the first effect of Adventure now to search a Griffin. No Ogre, and that of course means he doesn't have an Ogre. Discarding the Draco back, and that we can get a Griffin. He could theoretically still have Ogre Nip to make us commit, but we are going to force that out with a Lulu here, because we go for the Crystal Ring route, because we're like super safe. And like I said, even if you're super safe, you definitely still want to play the safe route, especially if you're super safe, because having a good hand means that you will have so much tempo anyways. You don't need to go for risky things, so you can also just go for like the medium, because you are so high in tempo and in card advantage and in stuff on the end board. If you go for a safe route, you're still going to be so strong, and you just don't have the risk of running into the opponent's blowout cost, like a Dark Ruler, for example. So we go for a Lulu here on the Neon, giving the God combo, giving a Kowloon, which is important. Having access to a Kowloon makes it so that you can go into a Nip plus Hand Trap somewhat safe, because we have Griffin plus Crystal Wing to go for something, and then because we have another name, we still have a Quinglong engraved, so even if we get nipped here in a second, or theoretically in a second, we would still end on Shen Shen Chuchu, which is insane in my book. GG, send the Quinglong, and we go for a basic line here. Lulu and Neon, summon a a Coral Dragon, sorry, a Chuchu on the GG, which is a non-tuner, make it level 6, we have a tuner 6 and a non-tuner 6, this goes into Tzolk'in. Getting a draw in the meantime, drawing will be a GG, which is like decent follow-up, I guess. Now, the opponent doesn't nip us, so we're like, okay, there's no nip, there's no Ogre, there's no Ash, there's no Lancia, what could there be? Board breakers. So at this point, we are like full on, okay, the opponent does only have board breakers, which could theoretically stop us. We set the Kowloon, summon a Crystal Wing, Kowloon, activate a Chuchu out of the deck, and now we use the Quinglong. We decide, okay, what do we do? We only are dying to board breakers. Droplet is quite bad against our deck because of Shen Shen. So we are only really fearing a Dark Ruler. And at this point, we then decide to go, okay, Dark Ruler means we will 100% of the time live. Let's discard the Token Collector. We will show the opponent the Token Collector, which is fine because we have so much. We are allowed to do that in my book. And that also means we have way more follow-up in the next turn with the GG. One extra name in the follow-up is actually huge, because it just sets up so much and it just snowballs so hard. We definitely want to keep that. So we discard the Token Collector because we can also play around it. Giving the opponent the chance to theoretically Token Collector to Dark Ruler the whole board. We have that, but we don't need to do that because we have Chuchu. So even if we Brave Engines, we are not forced to summon a Token Collector, but we'll get to that later on. We just summon a Laulau here on the Chuchu. We should send a Quinglong. We just sent a Lily for some dumb reason. I don't know. You definitely want to send a Quinglong here because it's just free follow-up, and that would be like our third or fourth line of follow-up. We summon the Neon, and we just synchronize them into Shen Shen. So this is the end board we have. We have Omni Negate, we have a Monster Negate, we have a Shen Shen, we have a Chuchu. For follow-up, we have a GG, we have a Laulau, which we will be adding with the GG, and we have a Shen Shen, plus a Quinglong, theoretically engraved. So that's 4 lines of follow-up we have in the next turn. So we are super safe from a Dark Ruler, because we still have Disruption in the form of Chuchu and Token Collector. We are pretty safe for Droplet, because he would need to Droplet for 3. And all of them need to be from hand, because he can't Droplet from the field because of Shen Shen. And we still would have had Chuchu and Token Collector for that. So in my book, we are super safe. We're just trying to play into the opponent's hand by not playing into a talent and not playing into a Dark Ruler. These are the key aspects I had in my head when I decided to use my Disruption and how. So end phase, we will be adding a Laulau with GG's effect. This doesn't activate, by the way. I just declared, so it's just clearer for the opponent what I'm doing. So you don't get baited into it being an activated effect, guys. Draw for turn as a Draco, which sucks, of course. He decides to go for an Impermanence on Crystal Wing, I think. Yes. I'm not 100% sure if he's even allowed to do that, because I don't get the wording of this, because it says, while you control another Synchro monsters cannot target this card for attacks. Also, your opponent cannot target it with card effects. So I think 99% this is protected, and not this actually, but I don't know. I think this is allowed because he probably knows that he's like pretty high rated. Impermanence on the Crystal Wing is fine. I don't really get why he went on the Crystal Wing with that. because this is just an Omni Negate. This is like better than a Crystal Wing. But I guess he went for that. I don't know. We decided to let this go through because we could use a Griffin Ride on this, and then we have a Monster Negate, or we just let it go through and we have an Omni Negate. In my book, Omni Negate is better. He decided to go for Foolish. Okay, Brave Engine. Our plan of hitting the Brave Engine could be a Token Collector, which we don't want to do because, like I said, imagine he Brave Engines and we Token Collector and then he Dark Rulers us. We lose all of our disruption and then he just can play with 3 cards in his hand. We definitely don't want this to happen. So, he uses the Enchantress in the grave. This would have been a Crystal Ring, by the way, even with the talents. Definitely would have Crystal Winged that. We get the ride. He gets the ride. He summons the token, and we decide not to go for the Token Collector for that reason. In hindsight, I misplayed here. I definitely should have hit the Adventure with the 2-chip because we can still get rid of the token with the Token Collector. He uses the Adventure here. We don't hit that because we want to hit the token. Like I said, definitely in this case you want to hit the Adventure on this point. But I wanted him to minus on an effect. He sadly has the Draco back, or luckily, depending on how you want to see it. This now forces the 2-chip because we don't want him to get the Draco back on the token and start to force stuff out. So we 2-chip the token away. Now the opponent is like in a little pickle, I would say. He has lost most of its tempo because Brave Engine just does so much for the deck going sec, and he still has to face an Omni Negate and a Shenchen and a Token Collector. Cyberse Engine is just dead. So we don't have to fear that. This is where the Chucha would have come in. So we don't even lose too much because Chucha on normal summon is usually the way you want to go against the Cyberse Eldlich, or like on the Devotee, or just one pop usually is enough to stop the Cyberse Engine. But because we have Token Collector, we are super fine. The Cyberse Engine just does nothing. He decides to go for Illusion of Chaos here, getting a Souls. At this point, we know Souls in his hand and a Griffin Rider. He activates Souls in hand. We are not too sure if we want to negate that, but in my book, Souls just doesn't do anything on its own. It's just a body. So if he decides to go for Souls, discard 2 to draw, because he cannot draw from the field because of Shen Shen. He needs to use 2 from the field. At this point, we can negate no matter what. But then the reason is, okay, what if these 2 cards are Eldlich cards? It's like a big plus, right? Well, Eldlich just doesn't have enough high tempo at this point. If he has Elixir Golden Land in his hand, and he has them in the grave, and he sets an Elixir and a Golden Land for next turn, I'm just gonna play through that. Look at my board. It's still way too much. So this is not a threat. Then Magician's Soul basically just becomes a body. And so we decided not to negate it in the hand, because the only thing that bodies really accomplish here are Anacondas or Link 2s, which you cannot link like Chain Block, so we can always just Griffin negate anything which the body would accomplish. He chains a Griffin Rider to the Soul summon, so he has 2 boards on the monsters on the field. He decides to activate Cursed Outland, so there's only 1 unknown card. We don't want to negate the activation because then it would go into the graveyard. And we're thinking again, okay, what can he add here? He can add a Golden Land to send with his Souls. We will just negate then. He can add a Golden Lord, which doesn't do anything in the grave because of Shen, and so he needs to use another card in hand to actually resolve it, and we're like, that's fine. If he has another spell or trap in his hand, even if it's a good one, like an Elixir, Eldlich Engine is just way too slow currently, so we don't fear that. We decide to let this go through here, because we don't need to fear. We can just play it safe. We probably think, okay, the worst thing that could happen that he summons gets 1 here, 1 Golden Land, and then uses Souls for 1. We could negate that, and then he has like Cyberse card to start going, but he doesn't have enough. He only has a Golden Lord at, so we're like, okay, the next card in his hand is a spell or trap. He uses the Golden Lord on the Shen. We of course decide to negate that because like this is the biggest threat, and if we negate that, his only plays are with these 2 bodies on the field here. We negate it, shuffle the Griffin Rider back, and at this point we still have a Token Collector which is dead from now on because the opponent doesn't have any cards left, so there's no Cyberse Engine going. So he only has his 2 cards, so that's an Anaconda, and we pretty soon realized that an Anaconda is just not enough for this game state, because we have a token with Draco back equipped, which you cannot run over and needs to pop, or else we just force his Enforcer out next turn. We have a Crystal Wing, which basically forces out the Enforcer as well, and we have a Shen who's like still an insane body, and force it out. Not doesn't force out the enforcer, but theoretically could go into battle phase next turn. So he's doing a big thing now. I start to evaluate the game state as well, and I'm like, is there something? Is there a play which actually progresses the game state for him, or is he just doomed? He has like 3 options, basically only 2 in the Shenshin and the Crystal Wing. He decides to go for, I think, pop a Crystal Wing. That's probably the correct play. And then in the standby phase, in the next standby phase, hit a Shenshin, so we cannot resummon the Shenshin. He decides to hit the Crystal Wing and the Anaconda. Both get banished because of Shenshin. Draw for turn is an Ogre. And he pretty soon realizes that he doesn't have anything because we can just Draco back the Phoenix. He chains it, but what is he hitting? He knows we have a Laulau in hand. We definitely have a Quinglao in grave because of it, because he has no disruption apart from that. And we have one way to force out the disruption. That's basically game. He realizes that as well. So it's game. I won. He lost. It still was an amazing game, and it was a good way to showcase, even if you have a broken hand, you still need to respect the opponent's out. If I token collected on the Brave Summon there, and the opponent had a Dark Ruler plus playable Cyberse engine, we definitely could have lost this game. So it's always something you want to keep in mind. But that's been it. I hope you guys can enjoy the nice weather out there. Class is dismissed. You guys are dismissed as well. Professor Sunreis out. Peace.